Zebulun, Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command thee, O Spirit. Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command.
In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'm John, and this is the Abracast. We're going to take a break from looking at the downfall of Western civilization to talk about Liber V, Reguli, or the Book of Princes, I believe. We haven't done a Thelemic episode in a while, so I wanted to take this opportunity to get back to it and to touch base with it. So Liber V is pretty small. There's a lot of stuff that's going on with it, though. So it dabbles, or it has connections with the Kabbalah. It has connections with the tarot. Chakras are in there. Thelema, Harpocrates. There's wands involved in this episode. So all of these things, if you need a crash course on any of them to make heads or tails out of this, you can go to the feature topic link on Abracast.com and check out pretty much all of these. The Harpocrates stuff, I believe the episode's called Masonic Goat Riders. So you could check those out there. And the wand, I have the Wand of the Art episode. It used to be just a bunch of different videos I clipped together. It was about how I did my wand. I was full of some grimoire and did a wand. But anyhow, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So also with this episode, there's going to be a lot of talking about different gestures that the magician does and stuff. So I'm going to try to elaborate on that as much as I can. I know that podcasting is at least this version of it is it's no good for graphics, right? So I'll try to describe this stuff as best as I can going through. And also, we're going to get into tracing out a verse pentagrams. And you draw them a bunch of different ways. So I'm going to try to explain that as much as I can as well. But please feel free to do your own research on them if you need clarification. Or if you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? What do you mean you start at the bottom and you work your way up to the right or left? What do you mean you start at the left and work your way around? We'll get into all of that. I just wanted to let you guys know what you're in store for, and maybe I'll throw some of these harder to explain stuff up on my Instagram before the episode hits. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Well, I'll explore that concept here in a little as we go through. I'll examine the need for it as we work our way through. But yeah, so we're ready to roll. I have my vessel of the art here, and it's topped to the brim with my gin jihad, so let me get lubed up. It's the mother's milk. So before we dive into Liber V or Vel Reguli, we're going to stop off here and talk about ritual embodiment in modern Western magic. Becoming the Magician by Damon, Zacharias, Lycourinos. Yeah, something like that. They talk about, it's this interesting book talking about here. Well, here's what they're talking about. Interpreting the modern practice of Western magic. Theoretical reflections on the study of modern Western magic. In the introduction of Metamorphosis of Magic from late antiquity to the early modern periods, Jan A. Bremer and Jan R. Venestra define magic as a field of inquiry commonly used to designate a whole range of religious beliefs and ritual practices whereby man seeks to gain control over his fate and fortune by supernatural means. However, as Michael Bailey indicates, magic has typically been defined by authorities of various sorts, religious, legal, intellectual, who are either opposed to or at least condescending towards the practice and beliefs they see it entailing. Furthermore, in many contexts, people have designated the magicians and continue to do so again, regardless of actual terminology. Some readily confess to magical crimes when questioned by authorities, and others promote their image as practitioners of powerful rites or the possessor of occult knowledge as a social identity. Despite these issues in representation, Bailey contends that evidence demonstrates that most cultures draw on certain distinctions separating manipulations of spiritual or occult natural forces and entities that are deemed appropriate and approved from those considered sinister and illicit. Whether defined in terms of foreign rites of otherness or private rituals as opposed to public and communal ceremonies, magical beliefs and practices comprise of a shadowy and tenuous, but still often carefully constructed realm that helps shape a society's basic conceptions, both spiritual and natural forces that imbue the world with meaning. According to Bailey, the reason for this persistence of reference is that in the rites, rituals, taboos, and attendant beliefs, magic might be said to compromise, or at least describe, a system of comprehending the entire world. It provides a means for navigating among the varied forces that are comprised of shape, material creation, and promises its practitioners methods of controlling or at least affecting those forces. In certain circumstances, magicians claim to have their rites can elevate them to a higher state of consciousness, allowing them to perceive occult aspects of nature or enter into a communion with preternatural or supernatural entities. The portrayal of magic as meaningful and effective worldview or practitioners require careful examination of the words, concepts, conditions, designating magic as a categorical field of inquiries. The same also implies for how designations of magic can relate to other expansive systems of inquiry, such as religion and science. Furthermore, investigations into specific magical beliefs, practices may also need to be may also need to introduce the development of other areas of study, such as ways which material objects and even human bodies become inscribed with meaning and power as critical interfaces for the academic study of magic. To approach magic as a worldview, along with how it might inscribe with meaning and power the material and physical dimensions of practice in this book, I propose that rather than simply studying magic in terms of how it is understood and reacted to, analytical focus should be shifted on how it is enacted to become a meaningful, lived phenomenon for practitioners. This approach demands that the practitioners themselves become the focus of inquiry, as it is their inclination to espouse certain narratives objectified by acting in certain ways to produce the conditions and participating in a magical worldview. This entails that the inactive modes of embodiment, as both symbolic and experimental medium, should become a critical focus in the study of magic. The primary research question that I aim to address, therefore, is how practitioners, by means of a distinctive mode of embodiment and consciousness, produce, represent, and experience magic as a preparatory process, transitioning from an ordinary to magical worldview by meaning and effect as a process of self-transformation, whether temporary or permanent. I examine how practice produces the subjectivity of the magician as a compromising, a ritual body of a lived nexus of symbols, gestures, and narratives constructed in reference to the magical narrative in the enactment in order to participate in the magical worldview. This approach also calls for investigations into how a magician's ritualized body serves as the locus of interaction with forces and entities presenting in both primary and secondary resources of magical literature, thus expanding scholarly knowledge regarding the use of the body in magical ritual. To investigate ritual and the body as a critical interdisciplinary interface of the study of magic, I present my own participant observation of 5 ethnographic case studies of modern Western magic, a selection of rituals illustrative rather than representative of the spectrum of modern Western magic, but with nonetheless incorporate some central types of Western magical ideas and practices. The focus of these ethnographic cases is directed towards the ideas and method my informants employ with the self-legitimizing and self-representing as magicians seek to obtain. Okay, so ethnographical in this sense is just means relating to the scientific description of peoples and cultures, of their customs, habits, and mutual differences. So in this book, they kind of encapsulate on the abstract of the chapter on Liber V, they say this. Well, we don't really need all this because we're not getting any farther into this book. We're not going to be talking about their ethnographical point of view. But here, let's go to here. These portrayals also incorporate the informant's own explanations for the sections and approach of the genre of Western ritual magic, along with their own personal testimonies regarding the experiential outcomes of these magical rituals. This chapter in particular focuses on the ritual deriving from the works of Aleister Crowley. It is referred to as Liber V Vel Reguli, and it encapsulates much of Crowley's esoteric worldview, referenced to as Thelema. The ethnographic study of Liber V Vel Reguli was conducted in a city of Scotland with the magical practitioner who self-identifies as the cosmology and practices of Thelema, who is referred to as the Thelemite. Okay. I think that sets the groundwork pretty good. I really just needed to get that worldview stuff in there, and let's get to it. Liber V Vel Reguli. Being the ritual of the mark of the beast, an incantation proper to invoke the energies of the Aeon of Horus, adapted for the daily use of the magician of whatever grade. The title is Latin, meaning Book 5, or the Book of the Prince Regulus is also the name of the star, which marks the beginning or the 0 degree of the constellation of Leo. This ritual is marked by a number of gestures, and this is the first gesture. The oath of enchantment, which is called the 11-fold seal. The atom inversion towards the Aeon. Let the magician, robed and armed as he may deem to be fit, turn his face towards Boleskine. That is the house of the beast. 666. This is the much talked about house on Loch Ness that Crowley owned for a time. I think it just went up for sale a few years ago. Someone probably already bought it. It's 17 miles from Inverness, latitude 57.14 north, longitude 4.28 west. There's editor's notes that I'm going to run through here as well. Note that this implies the direction of Boleskine should be taken as east, in the temple as specified in the Gnostic Mass. However, it does not necessarily have to be so, since later in the text it specifies that the magician must grasp his wand. The robed and armed as he may deem to be fit is not wide-ranging as it may sound. Back to the ritual. Let him strike the battery 13331. That's 11 knocks. 11 being the number of magical energy. Note that there are 4 sets of 11 knocks during the completed ritual, making 44 in total, representing the materialization of magical energy. And also being a number of Ra-Hur-Kuit. Ra-Hur-Kuit, as you'll recall, is Ra, Horus on the horizon, and Harpocrates. It's like a combo god of these two guys. 11 being the number of magical energy is, some speculate that this is why Crowley puts the K at the end of magic, by the way. It's the 11th letter in the alphabet. Back to the ritual here. Let him put the thumb of his right hand between the index and medius to make the gestures hereafter following. So this is like the I got your nose. I got your nose gesture. The thumb being the finger attributed to the spirit and also containing the important center of chakric energy. the vertical component of the enchantment. Let him describe a circle about his head, crying, Nuit. This is the Shanshahara chakra above the head, attributed to the An Sof on the Tree of Life. Go back and get at all of those Kabbalah Tree of Life episodes. And the An Sof is the original thought before corruption. And then let him draw his thumb vertically downwards to touch the Muladhara chakra, crying Hadit. So you do the circle around your dome, and then you draw vertically down with the I got your nose gesture to your root chakra, right around the area of your beehole. The Muladhara, the earth center attributed to the Malkuth on the Tree of Life, is found at the base of the spine or at the perineum, just behind the genital region. Opinions differ. I'd suggest the latter in practice, since touching the base of the spine during this rite is somewhat awkward. So one of the weird things that he does in this, I guess it's weird. I don't know. He tries to jam all of the chakras into the middle pillar of the Tree of Life. And I believe there's only, there's only 4 or 5 of the Sephiroths in the middle pillar. So it seems difficult. I think the editor will talk about this later. Back to it. Let him, retracing the line, touch the center of his breast and cry, Rahur Kuit. The Anahata chakra, the solar center, attributed to the Tiparath, or perhaps more accurately, the triangle Chesed, Gabora, and Teperath. Note that the symbol of Ra Kuit is a downward pointing red triangle of fire, the horizontal component of the enchantment. Let him touch the center of his forehead, his mouth, and his larynx, crying, Ayawaz! The center of the forehead is the location of the Anj chakra, the larynx, and the location of the Vishuddha chakra, attributed to the Saturn and to Thoth. The mouth is the only one of these which is not a primary chakra, perhaps because Ayawas is the voice of the gods. And let him draw his thumb from right to left across his face at the level of the nostril. This forms the crossed path on the Tree of Life from Binah to Chakma. This is the path of the Empress. Let him touch the center of his breast and his solar plexus, crying out, Therion! The Anahata again and the Manipura, both of these together are attributed to Chesed and Gabora, the Tiparath triangle. And then let him draw his thumb from left to right across his breast at the level of the sternum. The cross path linking the Chesed to Gabora on the path of lust. And let him touch the Svadhisthana and the Muladhara chakra, crying Babylon. This is the sacral chakra and the root chakra again. The sacral chakra is located in the genital region and is attributed to Yesod and the moon. And let him draw his thumb from right to left across his abdomen at the level of his hips. The cross paths linking Had and Netzach on the tree in the path of the tower. Note that the numerological value of these three crossed paths added together is 93. I don't know why the crossbars go in these directions. They do not follow the path of the lightning flash as it shoots downwards from Kether to Malkuth, station to station. Perhaps there may be a reference to the direction of spin of chakras. Thus shall he formulate the sigil of the Grand Hierophant, but the dependent from the circle. The sigil of the Grand Hierophant being the triple cross. The asseveration of the spells. Let the magician clasp his hand upon his wand. His fingers and thumbs interlaced, crying, Lashtal, Thelema, Phaiof, Agape, Omg. I had to look Omga up. It's interesting. It's one life, individual and external, that was and is to come. Thus shall be declared the words of power whereby the energies of the Aeon of Horus work. His will in this world. And each of these words has numerical value of 93, since there are 5 of them, and they are repeated once, plus an extra thelema in the middle. There are a total of 1193 words in the right. Note that the F's in Phaiof are silent. Oh, Iof, as is the GN in Om. For more on these words, see Book 4, Part 3, Magic, Theory, and Practice. Furthermore, it is the first gesture. There are 6 god names mentioned. Nuit, Hadit, Rahor, Kuit, Iowaz, Therion, Babylon, and 593 words, 11 invocations in total. Thus, it is named the 11-fold seal. The combination of the 6 and the 5 is a very important facet of the rite. The proclamation of accomplishment. Let the magician strike the battery 353, crying abrahadabra. The second gesture. The enchantment. Let the magician, still facing Moleskin, advance to the circumference of his circle, and let him turn himself towards the left and pace with the stealth and swiftness of a tiger. The precincts of his circle until they complete one revolution thereof, and let him give the sign of Horus to the enterer, as he passeth, so to project the force that radiateth from Moleskin before him. The sign is made by leaning forward, advancing the left foot, and throwing the arms out horizontally before pointing the index fingers as if to fire energy out of them. Shazam! Let him pace his path until he comes to the north. There, let him halt and turn his face on the north. So you go around 1 1/4 times. Then let him trace his wand the averse pentagram proper to evoke the air. So all of these pentagrams that we're tracing with our wands are inverted or averse. They're pentagrams, banishment. But depending on what element you're calling to, it depends on how you draw the pentagram. So in your mind's eye, if you can envision an upside down pentagram, if you are you're tracing your pentagram to evoke the air, which is Aquarius, but you're like, no, that's a water sign. Listen, it's a air sign. Okay, You start at the bottom, middle, and your first stroke goes to the upper right-hand corner. And then you complete your pentagram thusly. So this is Windershins. All right, so there's two different directions you're drawing these pentagrams as you go. Windershins, which is basically counterclockwise, and Deosil, which is clockwise. Okay, so the airs, you start at the bottom middle, and you work to the upper right, and you complete it moving counterclockwise. Okay, that's not so bad, right? Then let him bring his wand to the center pentagram and call upon Nuit. The editor says, you should visualize a particular god or goddess called in each quarter. If in doubt, use the tarot card imagery. For Nuit, see the star. So when Crowley did the Thoth deck, he changed a number of the things from like the traditional tarot cards. Like he turned the Aeon he turned the Judgment card into the Aeon, and he turned the World card into the Universe. And it seems like a lot of the ones that they're talking about in this ritual to visualize are specifically ones that he changed, which I think is very super interesting. It makes me want to go back and work on more of my tarot cards, build more of them, you know. All right, so after they do the pentagram and he calls out upon Nuit, he is to let him make the sign of Pula, standing with his feet together and his head bowed, his left hand shielding the Moladhara chakra, and his right hand shielding his breast. So he's got one hand covering his root chakra, right? His left hand shielding his root chakra, and his right hand shielding his breast. So there's a number of these that we're going to be talking about, and the editor here added that this is the attitude of Venus de Medici. This is a good famous piece of artwork that you can kind of get the idea what he's talking about. So a lot of these poses and gestures that he's talking about, if you lay the Kabbalistic tree of life over top of the gestures, you can see that they correspond with the different Sephiroths that he's talking about. When he's talking about Kether or Doth or Gabora, these are the Sephiroths on the tree of life that these poses are kind of juxtaposed with. Let him turn against to the left and pursue his path as before, projecting the force outwards from Bolskine as he passeth. Let him halt when he comes next to the south and faces outwards. Let him trace the averse pentagram that focuses fire, or Leo. So in this pentagram, if you're thinking of an upside down pentagram, you're going from the bottom right to the bottom left, and then moving up to the top right, down to the bottom, up to the top left, and completing it. Let him point his wand to the center of the pentagram and cry, "Hadit!" This is the Thoth card of the Aeon, which would be my card of judgment. Hadit is the winged disc. It appears in the Aeon card. Let him give the sign of Purur, standing, feet together, head erect in his right hand, the thumb extended at a right angle to his fingers. Be raised the forearm vertical at the right angle with the upper arm horizontally extended in the line joining the shoulders. Let his left hand and thumb be extended towards and the fingers clenched rest at the junction of the thigh. And let him proceed as before, then in the east, and let him make the averse pentagram that evoketh earth or Taurus. In this case, you would start at the bottom left, to the bottom right, to the upper left, to the bottom point, up to the upper right, and complete it that way. And let him point his wand to the center of the pentagram and cry, Therion! This is Lust, the Justice card. Let him give the sign called the Ver, which is that of the feet being together, the hands with clenched fingers and thumbs outstretched forward and held at the temples. The head is then bowed and pushed out as if to symbolize the budding of a horned beast. This is, if you look at, search engine Aleister Crowley, invariably you're going to get this picture of him with this funny hat on, and he has his hands at his temples like this. This is the gesture of Ver, what he's doing right there. Proceeding as before, let him make in the west the averse pentagram whereby water is evoked. So water would be going from the bottom to the top left, then to the bottom right, the bottom left, and then the top right. This is, I'll tell you what, I have dyslexia. There's a reason. It's a long, depressing story. And this is very difficult for me trying to explain this. Anyhow, the averse pentagram of water starts at the bottom right and across the bottom left, and thus round Diocil. Note that the pentagrams change direction each time. First Windershins, then Diocil, and then Windershins again, and then Diocil. Pointing the wand into the center of the pentagram, let him call upon Babylon. Babylon is the goddess riding the beast. Note that you call upon Nuit and Babylon, but you cry the other names. This may be significant in that the LA feminine forces are perceived as lying outside the direct sphere of your influence, and are requested in a softer manner than the masculine forces. And then let him give the sign of Molir. The feet are widespread, and the arms raised to the raised as to suggest a crescent. The head thrown back. This is the attitude of Baphomet, Isis, and welcome the microcosm of Vitruvius. Let him break into dance, tracing a centipedal spiral Windershins encircled by revolutions upon his axis and pathos each quarter until he come to the center of the circle, and let him halt facing Bolskin. You go around the circle one complete revolution here. You've now done 3.5 circles, a number of coils of the Kundalini. Talked about Kundalini in some of the sex magic episodes. You might want to hit that up, amongst other things. Also note that you have gone from earth through air, water, fire, and thus to spirit at the center. You have raised yourself from the realm of the material to the world beyond. And let him raise his wand and trace the mark of the beast and cry, Iowas! So tracing this mark of the beast is going to be a chore. The mark of the beast is a sign in the form of it's a circumpunct. It's a solar circle with a dot in the middle, and below It is a lunar crescent with 2 smaller crescents below that. The editor says you could draw it in one motion by going around the circle once and then making a wider arc to draw the crescent and then going back and the 2 loops under the crescent. I know it sounds pretty vague. So I'm trying to explain how to convey it to you what this thing looks like. And the way that I have come across it is I would describe it as if you're looking, and I have to say I don't have any experience with this other than like the mirror, I suppose, but is if you are level and looking at a male genitalia coming right at you. That is the best way I can describe this Mark of the Beast business. It looks like a foreshortened penis, and the way the crescents are talked about is sort of like, the twins hanging out there. So that's the best way that I can describe it to you. And then there's a 7-pointed star that's laid behind the equipment. And then there it says 666 interlaced in the field and in the 7-pointed star. So now let him trace the invoking hexagram of the beast. So the Mark of the Beast and the hexagram of the beast are different. This hexagram is the famous unicursal hexagram of Thelema. It's a 6-pointed star you could draw without lifting your pen up. And it's hard to explain how to do it, or even what the proportions are different. If you think of a hexagram, the proportions of this thing are totally out of whack. But it's brilliant. And when I first started reading about this stuff, I'm like, what? Why is this universal hexagram such a big deal? But you can see with all this pentagrams of banishment and the docile and the Deocile and Widdershin's business, like, these things are important at some level. Let him lower the wand, striking the earth therewith. So this is the conception here, is that you are bringing the thelemic current from above down to earth, and you are standing in both worlds. You can act as a bridge between them. This is the idea of like the axis mundi. You are the connective structure between the sacred or the divine and the mundane. This is what your magic circle is all about, and the protection. And then let him give the sign of Mater Trumphians. This is the feet are together, the left arm is curved as if to support the child. The thumb and the index finger of the right hand pinch the nipple of the left breast as if offering it to the child. And let him utter the word Thelema. The child is being the thelemic magical creature that you have set into motion. That is, you have birthed upon earth. It's like this idea, well, when you say like a clethopic entity, is it has a negative connotation to it. So this is a little bit different than that. Perform the spiral dance, moving clockwise and whirling counterclockwise. Each time on passing the west, extend the wand to the quarter in question and bow. Note that you have extended the wand to the quarter, not to bow to the quarter. Each time you bow to the west, I assume, since bowing upwards, for example, is rather difficult. Before me, the powers of La, west. Before me, the powers of Al, east. On my right hand, the powers of La, to the north. Upon my left hand, the powers of Al, the south. Above me, the powers of Sht. leaping in the air, and beneath me the powers of striking the ground. La meaning nothing, and is directed to the west and the north. Since these are negative feminine quarters, Al means God, and is directed to the positive masculine quarters. Note that we do not assume that the positive is better than negative. It is simply a different polarity, as in the electrical current is the child of the negative and positive energies, and is the force that reconciles them. And then there's some notes here about the gematria of the whole thing that I'm not going to get into. Within me, the powers, the attitude of Pithna, erect, the feet together, the hands clasped upon a vertical wand. It's just like what he says. It reminds me of the Oscar. Oscar, Oscar! Pithna is the creator god of Egypt. The conception is that you have built your own universe. I crushed the universe and naught remains from Book 3. I always find that the right increases my creative powers greatly for the reason it is to be particularly recommended to all those engaged in artistic pursuits. Note that you have now done 7 more circles, which is twice 3.5. So altogether, the right, you've gone around 3.5 Windershins, then twice 3.5 Deosil, making a total of 3 times 3.5, or only once, depending on whether you count the Windershin circumambulation as a positive or a negative amount. Let my flames, my father's face in the star of force and fire. My father, in this case, is Baphomet, the All-Father of the Knights Templars, the averse pentagram occasionally drawn with Baphomet's face within its points, and the 2 upward points being horns, and the lowest point his beard. See the well-known logo of the Church of Satan? And the column stands his 6-rayed splendor. Note, flames, father's face, force, fire, 5 F's. Kabbalistically, F is vow, which equals 6. Thus we have the 5 and the 6 combined. 5 times 6 equals 30. Stand, 6-rayed splendor, 3 S's. Kabbalistically, S is Semek, 60. 3 times 60 is 180, plus the 30 from the previous line gives us a total of 210, equals Nox. This dance may be omitted, and the whole utterance chanted is in the attitude of Pitna. And then you are to do a final gesture, which is identical to the first gesture. That's it, fellows. I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. I'm glad to get another Thelema episode in the can. This was an interesting one. It's kind of been in my book for a while. And I thought now was the fucking time. You know, we're talking in another series about ceremonial magic or ritual magic or high magic, however you want to call it. And I thought it would be interesting to do this, to talk about it, especially because I kind of went off on a ramble and talked about, you know, the importance of play and how I feel like creative play is linked to this ritual magic. And it's about the rules. You have to stay confined to the rules. You know, because even though it is play, it's serious play, and ultimately it's all about, you know, psychology or whatever. So this would be a good one to kind of just touch on as like a kind of go between, as we're talking about this. And so I hope you like it. I do. And, yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say about it. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week and be safe.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books. Take control of your destiny. Understand your past, put your present in context, and know your future with a twist. Check out the Abracast Tarot card deck. Your body is your temple. So let's make sure you got a badass t-shirt on it. Variety of cool occult themed t-shirts. And other merch like stickers, wall art, mugs, and more. Welcome to the Red Archive. Get access to over 50 hours of archived episodes. More bonus audio. Additional exclusive content. All this for only $1 a month. Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Abracast.com.